This episode is already a full day late, so I guess I might as well just have a glass of wine while I record this. Right? Alright, so welcome everyone back to the Bittersweet Tastes podcast, and more importantly, welcome back to another installment of New Music Mondays. This is a very important Monday because we will have, or rather, I will have my very first guest on the podcast, who you will hear from in a little bit. Again, if you're on YouTube, there will be timestamps in the description if you want to skip straight to that and see who it is. But we'll get to that project and we'll get to that guest later. But as we started doing now, I'm going to start with the singles that came out this past weekend. And there were a bunch that I wanted to at least say something about. Not a whole ton that I absolutely loved. But there were a few that I took away with me, and some that I will never return to ever. And I will take this opportunity to absolutely, or not absolutely, but give my very, I'll say, critical opinion on. So, let's start off with the first single being the song called Put In Work by Jacquees and Chris Brown. Jacquees is spelled Jacquees. Jacquees. This song, he's an R&B singer. Jacquees, if you've never heard of him, I don't blame you. He's basically, well, let me explain first. So, this song realistically is nothing special at all. It's a still okay to good R&B song or pop R&B song. If you're not tired of hearing Chris Brown's voice at this point. If you're tired of hearing Chris Brown's voice, just skip this song altogether. You're not missing a whole lot. If you're not super familiar with Jacquees' music, at least I'm not. I'm not super familiar with it myself, but from what I know, he's just another kind of crooning R&B artist. The lyrics aren't great by any means on this song, but both Jacquees and Chris Brown sound pretty good, so I mean, what more can I ask for from a semi-pop R&B song? Not too much. The next song I have is called Nobody's Love by Maroon 5. And what I will say about the song is that I disliked it as soon as Adam Levine started singing. I actually didn't mind it for like the first few seconds that the instrumental was playing, but I mean, as soon as dude started, like, just came in and started singing, like, nah. Honestly, I think this week deserves another. I heard this song. I didn't know what to do for this week's Thursday episode, but after I heard this song, I think I finalized I'm going to do a Hate Train episode on Maroon 5. So. Look out for that on Thursday. Be sure to check back. But go back to this song specifically. You can skip the fuck out of this song. Just don't listen to the song. Just don't. I promise you, you're not missing a damn thing. You're missing absolutely nothing by never coming to this song. This song is really the musical equivalent of when a studio makes a movie with like this big IP. The first thing that came up. The first thing that came to my mind was like, I don't know, like Barbie dolls or something like that. I don't know why it came to my mind, but I feel like I've seen you'll make more sense when I keep explaining it. But this song is a musical equivalent of when a studio makes a movie with a big IP, and then they just send the movie straight to DVD. You know what I mean? Like a straight to DVD movie. You guys know what I'm talking about. Like the production value is insanely low, but for some reason, like you're looking at the characters and you're like, I feel like that would garner a bigger movie that I would see in the theater. But anyway, that's what the song is an equivalent of. Of course, DVD in this scenario is radio. This song is made straight to go to the radio, and it just sounds terrible. It has no merit to it. Do not listen to it. Again, actually, I'm not going to repeat it. Fuck it. Just don't listen to it. Next song I have is Un Dia, parentheses One Day, by J Balvin, Taney, who I'm not familiar with, Dua Lipa, and Bad Bunny. And again, I'm not super familiar with Taney or their specific contribution to this song, but just looking at the other three, I'm familiar with J Balvin's music, Bad Bunny's music, and then also Dua Lipa's music. And just looking at those three, you know, taking Taney aside again because I'm not sure what they do. That's a weird lineup. J Balvin and Bad Bunny, for y'all who aren't familiar with those two artists, they are Latin trap artists, Latin hip hop artists. And Dua Lipa is an English pop superstar. I think I read earlier today that she has the most streams on Spotify by like any artist, which is insane to me. I mean, I thought, you know, someone like like a Taylor Swift would be up there. But I mean, I guess that's just how the UK likes to stream music. But back to the song specifically. My only gripe with the song is that I feel like it should have been at like a slightly higher BPM. That's like a really small critique, but other than that, it's just like a really enjoyable like Latin. I'm gonna be corny here and say it's a Latin bop, but it is. My Puerto Rican friends will probably make fun of me for saying that, but J Balvin and Bad Bunny deliver as I would expect them to. Smooth vocals, a lot of energy, lyrics I can't understand because I don't speak Spanish. I only wanted to like Spanish 2 in high school because I'm lazy. Dua Lipa, on the other hand, is one of my pop queens, especially this year. Her album Future Nostalgia is fantastic. I talked about it on my first episode, and I will probably talk about it again, but go listen to that album if you haven't already. And she definitely pulled her weight and then some on this song. The song I probably would have passed on this song, or not save it to my library if it were just for J Balvin and Bad Bunny. But she did great on this song, and I love her, so I'm like, yeah, I'll support. If you're looking for some new music with some like a Latin flair to it, look no further than this song. We only have like 4 weeks left of summer or something like that officially. I mean, it's hot as shit here in PA, so maybe it'll end up being a little longer than 4 weeks. But this is definitely a song that you should put on repeat. Next song is called Take You Dancing by Jason Derulo. And it's funny because I actually forgot to put his name on my notes. But I read The Corniest Pop Star Alive, and then I immediately said, oh yeah, it's Jason Derulo. This song didn't start off too badly, honestly. And then when the chorus came in, I was like instantly reminded that this is still Jason Derulo, and he still makes the same cookie cutter dance pop radio songs that he likes to just grace the public with just every few months. And I was like, oh yeah, that's right. I don't like this. I will never listen to this song again, and I really hope that I never hear it playing anywhere other than maybe, and now that's what I call music, number, 4,580 something, whatever. Because that's the only place it belongs. Which, I just don't listen to this song. I mean, if you like Jason Derulo, I guess listen to this song. Not sure why you would listen to Jason Derulo after the age of 14, maybe. That might be even pushing it a little bit. Just don't listen to this song. Next song is called Only You Freestyle, and it is by Heady One and the streaming pop rap giant himself, Drake. Drake in this song is in like full chameleon effect. UK drill beat, check. Gets too comfortable with the pocket until the point where he just kind of loses the pocket. I don't even know how. If you don't know what I'm talking about, I don't have the timestamp for it on the song, but I think it's like the second verse kind of, or like the second half of his verse. He just kind of falls out of the pocket, like he can't stay on beat. It sounds weird. Not a fan. And also the new accent is back. We get UK drill back again, or UK Drake back again. We got him with the tings and the. I hate that he says tings, bro. I hate it so much. It's funny, but like at this point, like I don't know if he's clowning us. I don't know if he's just kind of like memeing us that we all just like, yo, stop saying ting. He's like, fuck y'all. I can be the greatest rapper on the planet and still say ting and piss all you guys off. So I think that's just what he's doing now. It sounds terrible, but whatever. So I like this song, not because it's good at all. In fact, I don't even have it saved in my library anymore because it's not good. I don't like listening to it, but I think but I like this. I will say I like this song because really only from a combination of me finding this like UK accent Drake rapping both absolutely hilarious and just very entertaining to listen to. Just like every once in a while I'd be like, oh, let's listen to just stupid Drake rap for a little bit. Like I'll turn this on, I guess. And also, I like UK drill. I'm really into drill, into like this drill sound now. I really hope a lot of artists jump into it and do really well with it. Especially, I hope a lot of UK artists get a lot more recognition outside of UK. But those are if it weren't that's really the only parts I like, quote unquote, liked about this song. I didn't do much research on Heady One because I didn't really care for his verse that much. But I mean, it's new. This song is new Drake, so do with this song what you will. Pass on if you want. It's just Drake in an accent. That's pretty much the whole synopsis of the song. Next song is called "Burn the Woods" by Ski Mask the Slump God. This song is 100. This song is 1 minute and 43 seconds long, and I only liked about the first 20 seconds of it. The song isn't terrible by any means. It's not like bad objectively, especially if you like Ski Mask music, or you like that style of rapping that he does, the really fast rapping. But I think that's the reason why I didn't like this song that much, because he could have absolutely destroyed this like grimy in your face beat, but he decided to go on like this. He decided to go on the direction that he picked for the song. I mean, it's this song I have the song as like a great example of why politically charged songs need to be insanely well made and very like meticulously made and very purposely made, because otherwise it turns out like this song, which in my opinion is just like super forgettable. Yeah, I'll do a podcast one day about politically charged songs that are actually good. This will never get anywhere close to that list. But moving on, next song is called Cabin Fever by Jaden Smith. And I've said this before on my Twitter, and I like to say it every time Jaden Smith comes up in conversation, which is not a lot, but Jaden Smith makes the best bad music ever, and I very much plan on dying on that hill. This song, however, is just bad. This song is just actually bad. It's insanely forgettable from the lyrics to the instrumental. It's just kind of there just to be there. I mean, this is literally just a cheap Post Malone ripoff song. Like, you'll turn this song on, you'll be like, I feel like if I were to turn this song on, not tell you who it was, and then ask you what it was about halfway through, I would assume that 8 out of 10 people would tell me this is a Post Malone song. Just listen to the song and tell me that Jaden Smith did not listen to like the song "Circles" by Post Malone, which I've talked about before as a song that I'm pretty sure was sampled in a song that I talked about the other day by a completely separate artist. But like, just listen to the song and tell me that Jane did not listen to this song "Circles" by Post Malone and say, hey, I can do that, but just like so much worse. This song's bad, don't listen to it. Another song that broke my heart, not that Cabin Fever broke my heart, but there was a remix put out of the song "Guilty Conscience." The original song is by 070 Shake. It's by, her name is 070 and then Shake, like a milkshake. I'm pretty sure, I don't know if she's actually signed to Good Music, but she's a Kanye co-sign, which is how I found out about her. And the original song is one of my favorite songs that came out this year. It came out, I believe, in January. And I still love it to this day. It's held up pretty well after these 6 months. But the original song is fantastic, and she released a Tame Impala remix this past weekend. And my notes on this are just listen to the original song. It is, and I'm not exaggerating at all, a million times better than this song, than this remix. The original is a million times better than this remix. Like, sorry, Tame Impala fans. I have a bunch of my friends are big Tame Impala fans, but like, this is not only like an insanely bad remix, it's just insanely unnecessary. The original song was perfect as is. Didn't need to touch it, but whatever. Few songs left. Next one being Baghetti by Smino, JID, and Kenny Beats. Baghetti spelled Baguetti. The song is just plain boring. I found it to be insanely boring, especially considering the artists involved. I'm not a big Smino fan by any means. I am a massive JID fan, and I'm a fan of Kenny Beats and what he can do. I've mentioned him a couple times in this podcast. I've mentioned JID a couple times in this podcast. But that being said, I would not recommend this song to anyone. I mean, I guess I'm kind of recommending that you listen to it now, but I wouldn't recommend it positively, if that makes sense. It's just super boring. It's just understated, underwhelming. Next song I have is called "Hot" by Pia Mia. And if you hear that name and you somehow, like, you think you've heard that name before but you're not sure where, you might know her from a song called Do It Again featuring Chris Brown and Tyga, which came out in 2015. Nothing much to say about this song, but I think it's pretty nice. I mean, I wouldn't necessarily... This song would go into the category of songs that I don't think a lot of people would like because it's not very good, but I like it, so fuck it. It's pop R&B that I found it to be pretty catchy and pretty entertaining to listen to. If you're looking for substance, don't go anywhere close to the song. It, however, is, I think, a good song that you could throw on at like a pool party if you're looking for a kind of vibe that this song would kind of give off, if you want to check it out or not. I think it's fine, or I personally like it, but I mean, you know, I would not be offended if someone came to me and told me that this song sucks. And then the last song I have is called Pac-Man, spelled like the video game character, and it's by Gorillaz and Schoolboy Q. And the only thing I really have to say about this song is that Q like super popped off in his verse, but other than that, this song really didn't do anything for me. Sorry. Alright, now on to projects. And there are only two quote-unquote projects. One of them isn't really a project, and the other one... Actually, neither of them are really projects. One of them is a 2-pack, and the other one is deluxe that I want to talk about. But the first quote-unquote project that I want to talk about is the J. Cole 2-pack that I talked about, or that I mentioned on Thursday last week. Came out on Wednesday. Didn't want to really talk about it too much until this podcast, so here we are. It's called... The 2-pack has a name, which I thought was interesting, but it's called Lewis Street. It's the name of the little collection. The two songs are called The Climb Back and then Lion King on Ice. I thought both songs were pretty cool. J. Cole is not my favorite artist by any stretch of the imagination, but I respect the music he puts out for the most part. I don't think it's bad. I think he realistically, I think he makes objectively good rap music. I'm just not the biggest J. Cole fan personally. I think that The Climb Back is a better song objectively, but I personally like Lion King on Ice more. And actually, if that kind of statement doesn't, or that format of statement doesn't really clarify my taste in music, I don't know what else will. As the two lead singles for his upcoming album, The Fall Off, which, again, these two, he said when he released them that these two songs will be the two lead singles for his upcoming album. But these songs did, even though, I mean, I wasn't insanely, like, happy, like, I didn't love these songs, they did make me very interested to see where he goes in terms of a whole collection of songs in the form of an album. I'm interested in a J. Cole album whenever he puts a J. Cole album out. I mean, you know, KID was fine. Revenge of the Dreamers 3, which, while not really his album, is his collective, and I like that. For Your Eyes Only, not the biggest fan at all. And I'm not going to go back to the other ones, because, I mean, this is not a J. Cole segment, but J. Cole has branded himself as what I would call a college woke rapper, where he tends to make relatively surface-level observations on social issues in a lot of different contexts. And while it allows for, like, the message to be easily received by a wide audience, it's not, like, that entertaining for me to listen to. Again, mostly because, like, if you're going to go with the old age comparison of comparing Drake, J. Cole, and Kendrick Lamar by far is the most socially conscious rapper. I will fight anybody who says that J. Cole is more socially conscious. It's just all, to me, it's all just super surface level observations. It's nothing like too in depth. Like, I mean, the entirety of, like, give me a single, you cannot argue with me that that anything that J. Cole has ever made is more that no project of J. Cole is as socially pertinent and as critically acclaimed while still being very focused on social issues than To Pimp a Butterfly. And that even, I mean, or really any of Kendrick's other albums, but whatever. Again, not a Kendrick versus Cole conversation. We'll have that one later. Yeah, the song, if you like J. Cole music, just go check him out. If you like good hip-hop, go check him out. If you like socially conscious rap, go check it out. There's some good wordplay on here. There's some very funny bars. There's a, I flip, like, an exclamation point. What was the exact bar? Something like that. But I thought it was kind of clever. He's a good rapper. He's a good writer, but I mean, I'm not the biggest fan, so it is what it is. And then the next project, quote unquote project I want to talk about is the is the Wanna Deluxe album. And if you don't know what the hell I'm talking about, good. So sorry if you also didn't understand what I said, because this album / artist is a tongue twister in the slightest bit. The album is called Wanna, spelled WNNA, and the artist name is Gunna, Gunna. If you couldn't tell where the creativity in the album title came from, I don't know how to help you. But he released a deluxe version of his Wanna album this past week, and you could not have paid me to listen to this album. Sorry. So as usual, Kanye, of course, did not deliver on his release date, which I would be sad about usually, but I mean, this weekend I was left with two other very interesting albums that I got to listen to from two very notable artists. The first being Folklore by Taylor Swift. So since I'm very aware that my general bias is against Taylor Swift, musically, and kind of the music she makes, I want to make sure that I at least brought in a different perspective to talk about this album. Again, since her music isn't necessarily my cup of tea, in order to give this album the respect that it deserved. So in order to do that, I asked a very special guest to join me on today's podcast. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. I'm Sarah Chrisman. This is my first time on the podcast. I've been a big Taylor Swift fan for, ever since I can remember. So thank you, Nick Hope, for inviting me on today. Really appreciate it.
Sarah is my, I say she's my resident Taylor Swift. Oh God, what's the word? She's the resident Taylor Swift fan in terms of our relationship. So anything, and she's like the pop fan. So I've mentioned her in the past, talking about how much she likes Ellie Goulding, how much she liked the last album. So a lot of albums that I don't necessarily like, some of them she does a lot. So it's nice to get a different perspective on some of these albums. So I thought, especially with this Taylor Swift album, having Taylor Swift being one of Sarah's favorite artists, that I should have her on to bring a more, I don't want to say positive, because I really do have a lot of positive things to say about this album, but I'll say a different perspective to take this album at. So yeah, welcome Sarah. Very nice to have you on the podcast, talking into the mic in between us. This album was, so if you guys listened to the last podcast on Thursday, this album kind of came out of nowhere. I'm pretty sure, again, she announced it on on Thursday, like Thursday morning, and then released later at midnight. And actually, I texted Sarah that day, and she didn't even know it came out. But I mean, if you're not like scrolling through music Twitter all day on Thursday, you wouldn't have known it came out, or it was gonna come out. So I'll take the credit for that. So would have gone right on the radar. Sarah wouldn't have even heard about it. But Sarah talked about it in a little bit. But she was in Delaware at the beach this weekend when it came out, and she essentially listened to it. Once we kind of listened to it together, I was here at home, but we kind of woke up on Friday. We're like, all right, let's just listen to this album, and we kind of were texting back and forth and giving our opinions on it, song by song. And I'll let Sarah start off with her opinion on it, because again, I think she'll have a more in-depth one. So if you just want to hear her more positive analysis of it, then you can just listen to this and skip my hating ass afterwards. But yeah, so you want to start off? I think Sarah has some notes prepared. I was kind of joking when I asked her to prepare notes, but she actually did. So you want to start off, kiddo?
Yeah, well, I guess the first thing I wanted to say is regarding how, like Nick said, I had no idea this album was coming out. So when he let me know that this was coming out, I mean, I was just like kind of ecstatic. But to go off that, this weekend, it was actually, I don't know, second or third time I had watched her documentary, if any of you guys have heard of it. It's called
Where can I find it? Oh, yeah, my bad. Sorry,
yeah, Miss Americana, which is on Netflix. So I watched that this weekend on Friday night after her album was released. But one thing I wanted to note was, if you have not seen that album, if you have not seen that documentary, I mean, I highly recommend it. But one of the biggest takeaways from who she is as a person is she's the most gifted songwriter, I think, of our time. I mean, the dedication that she puts in, you would see it in her, in that documentary. I mean, she just puts in, she lives for songwriting. And I think it was no surprise that she was able to do this during quarantine because, I mean, her ability to just nonstop produce music is just kind of just on another level. So,
what'd she say? Like, she did in like 4 months? She did the whole thing in completion since quarantine started, right?
Yeah. So I think that's really neat. And like I said, I watched that again this weekend, the documentary, and that was one of the biggest takeaways was that her ability just to constantly just produce new music is just on another level. So I guess I'll kind of jump right in regarding the album. I mean, I absolutely love it. So when I texted Nick, I think I told him this. I said, this is literally just her sweet spot. This like kind of like folk, indie kind of like tone or like just kind of style.
Sound. Yeah, style. Sounds a good way to put it.
It's just, I said, this is what Taylor Swift was made to do. Now, so, I mean, I loved her with some of her poppy albums. I loved her. I know she started as a country singer, and of course I loved her then because that's where I really got to know her. But this just feels like so right. So when I heard the first couple songs, I was like, wow, like this is exactly what she was made to do. So yeah, I guess that's kind of what I would say, like my first kind of takeaways. Another thing, so Nick and I listened to it together, and right away there were a couple songs like earlier on, I think like the first half of the album, we were both kind of saying maybe the music wasn't... A little iffy, yeah. But as the album went along, it seemed like the music just kind of got better and better. But the funny thing is, I listened to the album probably, I don't know, in a total of Friday, probably 6 or 7 times that day, so about 7 hours. I listened to that music, to the album total. Damn. And the music just got better and better for me personally. Like every single song just kind of, again, maybe it was just because I was just constantly listening to the music, but I can't find a song on there that now I actually dislike.
And I'll cut in there. I think like I've only listened to the album twice, and I will say that I still hold my opinion that the first half is not as... I don't like the first half as much as the second half, but I think initially off the first listen, I think I was still trying to get adjusted to what I was listening to in the first half. So to your point, like what you were saying was after repeated listens, every song ended up being better, getting better and better. And I think that was like my main issue with the first half, and I guess just the album as a whole, is that I just wasn't... This is both what I expected and not what I expected. It just took a second for me to actually understand this is a Taylor Swift album that I'm listening to, and it's folk and it's indie. So yeah, so I'll kind of defend my bias towards the second half in that aspect, but yeah.
Yeah.
Are you?
Okay, so I guess just a couple of things should we just kind of like highlight?
Yeah. So I pulled a couple of questions. I had a couple questions for Sarah that I think kind of might put more into perspective how we both view this album, or I guess specifically how she views this album. The first one being, so like I kind of touched on it earlier, but like what environment did you listen to this album in? I haven't talked about it too much on this podcast yet, but I feel like the environment that you listen to a specific album in is insanely important, because I mean, you like, you're not gonna get the full effect of like, I don't know, say a trap album if you're just sitting alone in your bedroom at 1:30 or about to fall asleep. Like it's not gonna hit right as much as it's gonna hit like, you know, you're at like a club or something like that. So like the environment is very important. So I was just wanted to ask.
Yeah. So like Nick said, this past weekend I was at the beach, and it was funny because I was with all my girlfriends, so it was pretty much ideal for this album because we're all big Taylor Swift fans. So I mean, we just kind of just nonstop. We just had this going. We were sitting at the beach, just kind of like listening to it nonstop. So it kind of just worked out that we were all together and we're all big Taylor Swift fans. So in this case, it was pretty much the best situation possible.
Right.
So yeah, that was kind of what it was like this past weekend.
Yeah. And just my own thing. I was listening to it just like in my bed. Like I woke up on Friday morning and just listened to it in my bed. So I was just kind of like, I guess that was the best situation I could have been in for like an album like this. But I mean, you know, I tried to take the environment out of it. I just tried to listen to like the music itself, but I don't think my environment had a big impact on how I listened to this album. But, you know, maybe it did. I don't know. Second thing I wanted to ask you, Sarah, is how, and this is a relatively big question. I don't know if you have this answer off top, and it's fine if you don't. But how do you think this album compares to her past albums, notably albums like 22, Red, and Reputation? Again, Reputation is her, if you're not a big Taylor Swift fan, it was her last album that came out before this.
Lover was her.
Oh, see, I already forgot about Lover. All right, I'm skipping Lover. The Reputation. I pulled out Reputation because it was not very well received, like at all. At least to the general music listening public. But I just want to know, like, how does it compare to, like, I would consider 22 and Red to be, like, her highs. Probably Red being her commercial high, 22 being her, like, pop high or artistic high before this album, and then, like, Reputation being, like, her low. So I just wanted to, like, gauge how you view this album compared to those other three.
Yeah, so right away I have a really big respect for Red specifically because I've only gone to one Taylor Swift concert and I went to her Red tour and it was phenomenal. So I will always kind of like support that one. That's kind of like the big one for me. I can still remember going to that. I think I was in 7th grade. But like I said earlier in this, I really feel like this specific album is literally just her sweet spot. I don't know what else to say other than as soon as I started listening to it and listening to it again and again, I was just like, oh my goodness, this is what she was made to do. So realistically, I would put it up there. Like I said, I don't have a specific. I don't know if I have a specific favorite, but it's really good.
Yeah, that's the ranking cop out. I use that phrase a lot. I'm gonna continue using it a lot. It's like it's up there. Like it's like the cop out. You're like I don't want to put it up first. It's like you just escaping the actual ranking. But no, exactly. I would, and I'll say my opinion on this because I have notes about this later. But I'll elaborate on my opinion on that same point a little bit later. But okay, it's up there. Yeah, Reputation was so bad. Anyway, okay. So, considering that, Taylor Swift has kind of gone through. I actually don't have any notes mentioning, and this comparison kind of popped in my head right now, which is completely out of left field. But I don't have any notes on here about her and Kanye West at all. But she kind of. At this point, I'm considering her. It's weird because now she's jumped around between 3 genres, like very heavily between 3 genres. I think is which a lot of artists don't do at all. I mean, some people go with like they kind of jump between different subgenres. Like some people will like stay in the pop lane but go into like electro pop or like dance pop or like just radio pop and stuff like that.
If you don't mind me.
You got it.
No, and that's just another thing I, at some point, kind of wanted to highlight also in this podcast was just her ability, and that's what I think is so amazing about this specific album, is, so before she went from country to pop, which right away, that's a huge, huge change, but then her ability, this is her 3rd time making a change in a specific genre, and I think that's why this album, I was reading some just articles and reviews from, just different reporters, people like that in general, and everyone was just saying that this album could be her best. The reason for it being that this is her 3rd time making a genre change, and her ability to pretty much, just dominate this and, come up with songs for this was just kind of like her ability to do that is just pretty remarkable.
Yeah. I'll always give an artist credit for using their platform to bring what I'll call a non-mainstream genre to the mainstream. And there are only so many artists that can successfully do this. Some of them being like Drake, Kanye. I mean, I know more rappers that do this. Taylor Swift has the platform to do this. Realistically, like, I mean, a lot of people have a platform to do this, but some don't necessarily want to take the chance in doing that, and I respect her move to do this. I'm considering it a pretty massive jump to go into folk, right? Because, I mean, like, and I should have asked you about this, but I mean, I don't personally see any of these songs playing on like the radio. Maybe like 1 or 2. There are how many songs are on this album? I forgot to note that down.
No, you're right.
Like there are. Oh my lord! By the way, this album is 16 songs, an hour and 3 minutes long. So out of 16 songs, I could maybe see I don't know, maybe 2 or 3 playing on like the mainstream radio, like the radio, like.
But if you don't mind me adding. she did start as country, and we all know very well that country doesn't always seem to get the same notoriety. And I mean, she pretty much dominated that. So when she was at her prime, so it's hard to say. I mean, again, and that's what's pretty amazing about Taylor Swift is her ability to, get, number one, like, on the charts and stuff like that. So I think that'll be interesting to see. But Nick has a good point there that I agree with him that I don't know how many of these songs are going to be.
And it's not a knock on the songs at all. It's just that it's not a sound that plays on the radio. But I mean, it's commendable that you're probably going to hear some of these songs on the radio at some point, and that's just the power of Taylor Swift, which goes back to my original point is I really respect that she's using her platform and her star power, I'll say, to just bring a sound that she actually likes, and she's, I guess, giving her respects to as an artist. She's bringing that into the mainstream. I will never knock an artist for doing something like that. Not that I'm knocking this album at all, but but okay, so quick tangent off the original question, which is if you could rank, and there could be like an age bias here or like a timeline bias here, but if you could rank based off just this album, and I mean it's only been been out for 2-3 days now, but if you could rank Taylor's best genres, or rather, if you could only hear Taylor Swift in one genre for the rest of your life or for the rest of her artistic career, what genre would you pick for that? So the three I picked, like we talked about, were country, pop, and folk music. You
might be surprised, but it's folk.
It's funny. Yeah, okay, yeah, I'll let you.
I mean, if anybody knows me, I'm kind of like, I'm really into singer, songwriter. I would say that's kind of my go-to genre. Like, if I really had to say what specifically I like, and I really kind of feel that specifically in this album, so I think that's why, when I told you that sweet spot, like I said, I feel like she was really kind of made for this. So that's why I absolutely love this album, is because that's kind of like my go-to genre.
Gotcha. So I guess for you, so I also had like that's a little bit both of your personal taste and the best use of her talents, right? So like me personally, I would prefer to have a pop Taylor Swift, right? I mean, I'm not the biggest fan of like the pop songs that Taylor Swift makes, but the music I listen to, I would rather see her in pop, but I think her talents, to back you up, Sarah, are best used in this folk indie sound. I think that's where her talents are most accentuated, most like maximized, perfect.
And I said that
she's really made for this.
And I told you that, like exactly. As soon as I heard this, that was the first thing I texted you. I was like, "This is literally, she was made for this genre." Do you remember? I kind of like texted because,
and I completely agree.
And I feel that way 100%. I know what you're, and I'm not surprised about you saying that you would want to see her as that pop Taylor Swift. And honestly, I think most people would.
Yeah. And that's like that's the thing, because like, she gained her mass popularity through pop music, right? I mean, like, she gained her notoriety through country music, or she became big off of country music, but she really went to like superstardom through pop music. And I mean, some of my, like, I have all of my favorite, quote unquote favorite Taylor Swift songs are pop songs, even like the countryer version, even the countryer ones are popular country music. So yeah, me personally, I was conflicted when I was listening through this album, because I was like, I wish this was I kind of wish this was like a pop album that I could like listen to and like weed through and pick out good songs from it. But at the same time, I'm kind of skipping ahead, but like this was the perfect move for her to do. Like this was this is exactly where she should have gone, completely despite my own personal taste. Because I mean, what does my personal taste matter to Taylor Swift? But yeah. Okay, so you're going folk through and through. Like, you would be cool if every album she released from here on out would be like more folk.
I would. And to add on to Nick's point, I think it's not a bad time for her to make this switch. I think it would have been hard to go country, folk, then pop, because I think she wouldn't have made
as big as a splash.
No, so I think honestly she's going to keep a good following with this, because she already has those. I forget what their names are. The people that
the Swifties. I call them Swifties.
Maybe Swifties. Yeah, I think her Swifties are still going to kind of like hang with her. Yeah. So I think this is the perfect time to do it.
Oh, for sure. Oh, I know that. Those Swifties are ruthless, man. I be on, like, keep in mind, people, like, I'm on Kanye Twitter all the time. So, like, Swifties do not miss an opportunity to just bag on this guy whenever they get the chance. I'll talk about that in a different episode. But, okay, so moving on from there. So, if you could pick a few favorite songs, so if you could just, I'm not sure if, do you have them prepared? Like, if you could just, like, do you have like favorite songs?
I do have a couple.
Okay, go for it.
I do on the album, the first song, it's The One. I do like that. I think it's a good kind of like...
It's literally called The One, like THE_1.
And it's a good entry song. It's a really good entry song, so I really like that one. I think a couple of the other ones that I like, we start getting, and again, I think Nick and I kind of highlighted this, but we honestly did, our favorites are more towards the second half of the album. I liked This Is Me Trying, and then you kind of go in order once you get, I think that, I don't even know what number that is on the album, but once you get to that one, I honestly kind of like the next few. So then after This Is Me Trying, I really liked Illicit Affairs. I liked Invisible String. Mad Woman, excellent. And then the next couple, I think, honestly, I liked. But I would say that hub of those four would probably be kind of my...
I also want to know, this is kind of a joke, but nothing says an indie album like having all your songs be lowercased.
That is true. Really.
I don't know why I just noticed that, but like, I don't know, that cracks me up more than...
You are right.
I just find that funny. Anyway, sorry, there's a little... That's just like a visual thing that just kind of makes me laugh. All right. And then I'll get to my favorite songs in a little bit. So if you could pick, like... Okay, so say, like, you were saying, you were going up to your friend, you're like, all right, you should listen to the Taylor Swift album, right? What environment would you say... I guess I could have placed this better, like, after the first question. But, like, what kind of place or mindset do you think the person... Like, if you were telling this, like, one of your girls, right? Like, and you're like, all right, you need to listen to this album, but you need to listen to it in, like, this place at this time. Like, what would that be?
Realistically, I mean, like I said, I was in the perfect situation this weekend because I just had nonstop. I mean, we were just kind of hanging out by the house and stuff like that. I think if you were doing a girls trip and you guys were sitting in the car for like a couple of hours, like going down to the beach or something with your girlfriends, I think that would be perfect because you could honestly just go, you could probably go hit through the album a couple times, just like nonstop and kind of just like hear it a couple times. So I think that would probably be a really good space to do it. I'm trying to think what else.
The car is the best place to listen to music. I will fight anybody on that. It goes the car, the club, and then alone in your room when it's pitch black. but that last one is only for specific hours.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I would say if you and your girlfriends were just driving down for a week, like going down to the beach or something like that, that would probably be perfect.
Gotcha. Okay. Gotcha. And then we already answered my last question, which is would you want to have Taylor Swift stay with the sound for future albums? And I think we both kind of agreed that she should. In terms of her artistry, I feel like she should, personally.
I agree.
I meant to look up like first week projections. I mean, I could probably look that up at some point, but I'm super interested to see. I know first week numbers are kind of arbitrary, and I mean, like, they don't really matter that, quote unquote, that much, especially in terms of like the streaming era that we're in. But I'm super interested to see what her first week numbers are, because I want to see how her fans, like, because it's one thing they have like critical acclaim on an album, right? Like, it's one thing for like people who like listen to music for like their livelihood, and they're like really critical about it. Like, it's different from like those people like an album, and from like their fan base like an album. You know what I mean? Or like the general public like an album. So if she sells like 100K first week, I'm gonna be not surprised, but I'm gonna be impressed. Honestly, if she sells like upwards, I mean, she can do it. It's Taylor Swift. Taylor Swift streams like a fucking mad woman. She just pulls streams. I made a joke last podcast that it seems like she just has a team of teenagers across the world, not even in America, just across the world, that just instantly buy her album as soon as it pops up on iTunes the night that it comes out. Like, it is insane how massive her streaming numbers are. But I'm interested to see that, just to see, because I mean, like, if this album doesn't do very well commercially, I'm interested to see if she stays with it for her artistry, or if she just dips back to like the pop sound that she knows she can sell records for.
No, I agree too.
Yeah, I'm interested. I have a few notes on it all.
Can I add one more thing?
Go for it.
I think the other thing too that's pretty amazing about her is, realistically, she's been producing and, you know, realistically being at the top of the music industry now for close to 15 years. I mean, she's going on. So she's 30, and
shit, I'm old.
she started at 16. Realistically, getting her number one from Tim McGraw, and then now she's 30 years old, so 14 years, and like, that's pretty amazing. I mean, like, that she's been able to stay so consistent and just just
Yeah.
relevant in general.
Yeah, yeah. She had the benefit of going into it at a young age. It's I feel like it's pretty easy to stay relevant when you're young and you kind of grow with your fans, or like you can grow with your fans to an extent. I feel like it's easy to maintain relevance that way. But I mean, of course, that's only a pro. I don't say that in any negative way against it. Like she's like the perfect artist. Realistically, she's like the poster child for like the music industry. Because everything she does is so like immense in terms of just like volume and impact and recognition and just awards and all that kind of stuff. Like everything she does just wins everything, just sells so many of these. Like yeah, she's been up there for a while. It would be hypocritical of me to not recognize that talent, to just be such a force in an industry that changes so much as the music industry, right?
Mm-hmm.
So many, because like I said, like only so many people can have this kind of impact on the music industry, and most of them like kind of tend to stay in like the lane that like populates the mainstream. So like for a while it's been pop for a while, and then like now it's like hip hop. So like now a lot of hip hop artists have a lot of longevity and they have a lot of notoriety in the music industry. But like through and through, like we said it, like she started out country, which isn't the most popular genre like worldwide or country or like nationwide. She went to pop, and now she's if she maintains this through like the folk sound, it's gonna be insane. Like you have to put respect on this girl's name after this.
Yeah,
you have to. Like I'm gonna make sure I have to, even if I come in with like pseudo hate, which I don't actually hate Taylor Swift or any of her music, but like I'm not just saying that because Sarah's sitting right next to me, but it's just like I don't respect her enough as an artist. I feel like I should do that more, and I feel like a lot of people should do that more. I feel like she's just kind of hated for like a myriad of reasons that have nothing to do with like her art. I hate on her for objective reasons, like her voice, but.
Boo.
But I mean, I'll save that. I'll save that for a completely different time. Okay, so I only had a few notes on this. Most of them were kind of echo Sarah's points, but the first one being that I think this is the best move that Taylor Swift could have done for her career in terms of artistry, even though it doesn't appeal specifically to me, or it might not appeal specifically to the masses in terms of like commercial recognition. This is, like Sarah said, this is definitely her sweet spot. Like songwriting is her sweet spot. There are very few people on the planet that could match her in I'll call it mainstream songwriting, because I mean, like there are like, of course there are probably hundreds of thousands of other artists that are just insanely good songwriters, but like at this level for so long, like you can't match Taylor Swift. You can't. And I think that's where her mass appeal is found. So that's why I said like I wouldn't be super surprised if this album did insanely well in like sales wise, because the songwriting is there, and it's there even more than it has been on like her pop songs. Because I mean, like her pop albums were very layered beneath just like levels of radio ready pop sounds and tones and all that stuff, but the songwriting was still there. But now it's like just the songwriting. Like this is like super raw. This album is super stripped down to just what matters, and that is her songwriting, and she kills it. So I have to give her recognition on that. And let's see. Like I said, I didn't personally like this album in general, but I think it really accomplishes what it was supposed to do. I remember on Thursday I said that I was really interested in this project solely because I wanted to hear what a Taylor Swift quarantine, quote unquote quarantine album sounded like, because you're a pop singer, that any album that you put out in quarantine, right, is not necessarily going to be made for radio, or at least it shouldn't be, right? Because people aren't going outside, people aren't going to like events, people aren't driving as much as they should be, so your music isn't going to be played in the same spots, right? So I like, and I really appreciate how she took this time, and I'll give her specifically this credit, but I'm sure her team had a lot of input in this, but I appreciate that she had the wherewithal to identify the fact that people are going to be listening to music differently now, so this is the best time. I'm also just going to completely assume the narrative that she wanted to make this quote unquote switch to folk music for years. Like I'm just going to assume that, right? And assuming that she identified that this right here, this COVID quarantine thing, is the perfect time to make that switch. because this is the only time that you can put out that Taylor Swift can put out this album and have it hit perfectly, like have it land perfectly, and I think it did exactly that. I'll finish out my notes by just saying that, just listing off the songs I like. I'm not going to go into what I like too much about them, just because this segment is long enough already, and again, most of the things, I kind of like the same things about all of them, and that's mostly just the songwriting. But songs like Sarah mentioned, that the intro track being The One. I also really like the Last Great American Dynasty. Ooh, my lord. See, there's the voice crack. Every single time. I just talk and I talk and I talk and my voice cracks. I also like the Last Great American Dynasty. Dinah. Jesus, I sound like someone trying to say Dino Nuggets. Sarah's laughing over here. God. The Last Great American Dynasty. I need to, like, shoot my voice down into, like, into the depths of hell.
Should I say it for you?
No, I think I got it. I also... My two favorite tracks on here are My Tears, Ricochet, and August. And I also like Illicit Affairs and Mad Woman. I can actually feel my voice, like, about to crack. So I'm going to take a sip real quick. I also have written that I will probably never go back to this project, like, as a whole, ever again. But I do have these songs noted. I'll probably come back to the songs every once in a while. Personally, I don't know when the hell I would ever play these songs, other than just if I'm just, like, doing work in my room or something like that.
Just need to, like, chill out.
Yeah, I just need to chill out. But I mean, like, I have R&B for that, so, like, I have Sabrina Claudio for that. If you don't know who Sabrina Claudio is, listen to my last podcast. I talk about her the entire damn time. I talk about her for like 40 minutes. But yeah, final thoughts, Sarah. This is your platform. I'm not sure when I'll have you back on here. I'll probably have you back on here. I don't know. Your two girls, Ellie Goulding and Taylor Swift, like came and went. So I don't even know when I would have you back on here to talk about music.
I don't know either. But isn't Adele releasing something?
Oh shit, yo! Listen, if Adele, listen.
I heard that.
We're talking about Taylor Swift. We're talking about, you heard that? Yo, I heard that too. We're talking about Taylor Swift. We're talking about a streaming giant. If Adele pops, whew, Sarah's giving me this look that she's just like waiting for this Adele album to pop off, to come out of the woodworks. I need this Adele album. The world needs this Adele album. I don't know how skinny Adele's gonna sound. I don't know if it's gonna hit the same. I'll be like, yo, I don't know if it's gonna hit the same, man. Like Adele, her whole thing for me, I'll talk for myself personally. She had like this whole opera singer like persona to me, like that just. Well, I mean, like she's a classically trained opera singer. I'm pretty sure that's correct. And then she, of course, transitioned into pop radio mainstream music. So she had this whole persona of being like this opera singer, and now I just don't see it. Now I just see her as a normal pop singer. So I don't know if this album. I'm interested to see what. We'll see. I'm interested to see.
Yeah, I'm interested too.
All right. Well, you heard it here, folks. When I talk about when I mention that the Adele album's come back out, expect Sarah back. She'll be first in line, and she'll have best believe she'll have notes ready. You got to be at the beach for that one, or like I don't know. Wouldn't even listen to Adele. Wouldn't even listen to it. Oh Lord, here comes a dog. Hi, dog. Oh God, a dog has invaded our room. All right. Well, I'll. Oh my God, at least she's being quiet. All right, well, thank you, Sarah, for being on this episode today. I very much appreciate your input, and I'll have to have you back on here for just like some other segments. Maybe not. Stop sniffing the mic, you weirdo. Not Sarah, the weirdo. My dog, the weirdo. But yeah, any last thoughts on Taylor Swift or again? The album's called Folklore. Did I even say what the album was called?
I'm not sure.
All right, well, the album's called Folklore by Taylor Swift. If you somehow have not heard about it releasing yet.
Yeah, so thank you so much, Nick Hope, for having me. Thanks, guys.
My government there, that's messed up.
And thank you guys for listening. Definitely subscribe, like. I don't know if that Nick says that all the time, but
I don't
definitely go ahead and do that.
I don't promote the YouTubes as much. I'm really Spotify gang. Sorry if y'all listen on YouTube and I'm not recognizing you guys correctly. All right, so thank you again, Sarah, and it's time to get into the greatness that is this Logic album. Alright, so this Logic album called No Pressure. I'm just going to save y'all some time. I really like this album. A lot. And I'm sorry. I'm sorry to y'all who don't like J. Cole. Or J. Cole, Jesus. I'm still on the J. Cole minor hate train. Sorry if you don't like Logic that much as a rapper. I like this album. It's cool. It's good. I think it's really good. This is really exactly what I wanted from this specific album. It's by no means perfect. And I'll talk about that later. But again, this is exactly what I needed from the quote-unquote last Logic album ever. Again, I'm still not, artists retire and unretire so many times. Jay-Z did it twice. Excuse me. Jay-Z did it twice. Nicki Minaj said she's retiring, but I already talked about how much I hate that kind of strategy. Go check out the Nicki Minaj Hate Train episode. I believe it was 2 Thursdays ago. It's called Icky Nicky. If you're on Spotify and then on YouTube, go check out that podcast because I talk a lot of shit about Nicki Minaj on that podcast. But anyway, back to this. Again, I'm not dying on the hill that this is going to be Logic's last album ever. I'm sure this will probably be his last album for a while, but I'm sure we'll hear from Logic again. But still, this is, if I'm going to take him at his word that this is his last album, this is really all that I needed from it. I'm not the biggest Logic fan in the world, but as what I would call a passive Logic fan, I guess, I like the good songs that he makes. I listen to his music when it comes out. This is exactly what I needed. So let's get started. This album is 15 songs long, accumulating into 59 minutes, and there were 0 noted features on this album. If you want to just if you're not familiar with the kind of music with the kind of music that Logic makes, or the kind of album this is boom bap rap, jazz rap, a lot of wordplay in it. If you like, slick rhymes and double entendre and stuff like that, it's kind of music this album has. And then this is what I would consider to be a concept album. I'll talk about it in a little bit, but Logic is really known and has been gotten most of his critical acclaim off of his concept albums, more than his, mixtapes or his, non-concept albums, normal albums. But this is part of his little storyline of concept albums, and realistically he has it formatted so this is like the last chapter of it. But yeah, I just want to start off my analysis by giving No ID his goddamn flowers, because this album sounds fucking incredible, like insanely good. It was the first thing that I thought when I started listening to it, and it is the last thing that I thought when I finished the album. Like, this album sounds incredible. Honestly, this one of the to me, again, this is all my opinion, and here, since it's my podcast, my opinions are facts. So, honestly, this is one of the best sounding rap albums I've heard in a long time. A lot of tracks, I had to replay some of Logic's rapping because I was just so engulfed in the actual instrumentals. Like, I just kind of lost track of, I'm like, oh, yeah, I forgot. Like, it would do like 20, 30, 40 seconds would go by of a song. I'd be like, oh, yeah, I forgot Logic is rapping. Let me just rewind and see what he was actually saying. For anyone not following No ID, the name is, quote, No ID. He was the executive producer of this album, which means that he was the one in charge of all the instrumentals, arranging the album, and how the instrumentals sounded with additional help. And then he had additional help from other producers. There are a bunch of other producers noted throughout this album, including Logic himself, who prides himself on being a producer. And he's a pretty good producer. He's a pretty good producer. He knows what kind of music he's good on rapping on, and I think he's good at making the kind of music that he raps on. So, and I think that he added so much value to this album that it's realistically unexplainable unless you just listen to it. Like, again, I want to at some point be able to just share the music with you guys here on this podcast, so you don't have to just pause it and go listen to it, or finish the podcast in its entirety and then like remember to go back and listen to these albums. But honestly, this is one of the albums that, for you to really understand a lot of the things I'm talking about, go listen to it. I don't think you really understand the gravity of a lot of the stuff I'm going to be talking about, especially the highlights, unless you just go listen to it. So please go listen to this album. No ID, man. This is an absolute masterclass on this style of hip hop production, which is, and Logic will say it himself, he's very boom bap rap heavy. So this is like the perfect boom bap rap album. Perfect, especially concept album. I mean, speaking of instrumentals, the one thing that I do really like about Logic is how vocal he is about his musical inspirations and influences with his music. And like all the time, not just in the actual works of music themselves, but also just kind of on social media or in interviews or anything like that. He's really vocal about it, and it's one thing that I really give him a lot of credit for, because it's really awesome for someone to an artist can have a lot of fans but they might not necessarily listen to a lot of the music that the artist gets influences from. And I feel like that's just another great way of kind of pushing this narrative or this agenda that there's so much music out there. It's hard to listen to all of it. It's impossible to listen to all of it. But if you can find a way to kind of streamline the experience of finding new music that you like, I have to give credit to anyone who assists in that. And I think Logic does that by continuously shouting out his influences and his inspirations in his music. And he wears them on his sleeve all the time, especially on this album and a lot of his other ones. He shouts out a few of these artists by name on the song Perfect, which I'll talk about later. It's one of my highlights. But in this song specifically, he literally, not he himself, but the little robot, which I will talk about later. And if you're a Logic fan, you know her name. She has a name, I forget it. I didn't really note it down because I don't really care. But she actually, is like the narrator almost throughout the entire album. Again, it's a concept album, so it kind of follows a storyline of some sort. And the narrator, quote unquote narrator, lists out a bunch of these artists that Logic uses as influences for his music production. The one that I remember, obviously, is Kanye West is a big inspiration that Logic says. And then also there are a few others. And you can also, he raps about him throughout the album as well. And then his other works of music also. This influence is also directly heard through some of the samples that he used throughout the album. There were a bunch of them. I mean, this was a heavily sampled album, or rather, this album used a lot of samples. The ones that I was able to identify just from listening to them without looking any of them up were there were 4 of them. So obviously there are 15 songs. I'm pretty sure every song used a sample. I'm pretty sure. Most of them I weren't able to identify, but the 4 that I was Igor's theme by Tyler the Creator was used on the song Hit My Line. Man I Is I couldn't. Okay, so it sounded like insanely similar to the song Indica Badu from Logic's past mixtape called Bobby Tarantino 2. And I couldn't figure out, I didn't know what the name of the exact sample, but it sounded exactly like that. I'm calling it a sample, so I guess you can say I knew 3.5 samples. But if you heard Indica Badu and then you heard this song, you know exactly what I'm talking about. I also heard, there was also on the song called Heard Him Say, which is the name of a Kanye song. Which, when I saw the name of the track of the song on the track list, I was like, oh, this is gonna be Heard Him Say, like there's gonna be a beat from the song. And Logic did me dirty. He tricked me. He used the sample from Good Morning by Kanye West off of Kanye West's album called Graduation. He used that instrumental instead, which I thought was kind of funny. I mean, obviously he did it on purpose, but I don't know if he meant to mislead people on purpose, but I thought it was really cool to for him to, directly reference one Kanye song and then to just use the sample from a completely different Kanye song off a completely different album, mind you. And then the last sample that I was able to identify was on the song called Amen, and it took a sample from the song called Running Out of Time by Tyler the Creator. Both of the Tyler the Creator features were off of his last album called Igor. In fact, I don't even know if I mentioned the first sample that I mentioned on Hit My Line. It's called Igor's Theme by Tyler the Creator. Go check out both of the songs. Go check out Igor by Tyler the Creator if you haven't already. I'm not sure how you can be listening to this music podcast and not heard one of the best albums to come out last year. Yeah, those were the samples I was able to identify. When I was looking through some of the Twitter comments and whatnot afterwards, there was I believe an Outkast sample or an interpolation somewhere, and then a bunch of other ones I wasn't able to identify myself. But if you're in the samples, they're there in spades. And as an avid Kanye fan, going back to more of the influence conversation, I was able to hear Kanye's influence like on a bunch of other songs on this album, but those songs didn't utilize actual Kanye samples, so that's why I didn't note them here. The other thing that I really commend Logic for in general, and especially on this album, is his wordplay. You can think it's corny sometimes. I have thought it's corny sometimes. In fact, a lot of times I thought it's very corny, but he's insanely talented at it, and it's fun, it's intricate, it's sometimes just downright stupid, but overall, it's wordplay like this that made me interested in hip hop in the first place. I love wordplay. I love double entendres. I love triple entendres. I love just like metaphors. I love all of it. It's so fun, and I mean, it's fun to like listen to a song over and over again to get the bars right, so you can like enjoy the like you can like imagine yourself like I came up with a bar like that. But yeah, I'm not gonna go through all the funny bars and all the wordplay that I liked, because there was a lot on it. Obviously, I'm not going to sit here and read them all to you. Just listen to the album. It's going to be a lot better than me reading them off to you. But one of my favorites I did note down, and it's off of the song Celebration, and it goes something to the effect of, I'm not going to have a beat behind it, but it goes something to the effect of, I get under people's skin like stitches, no strings attached, I just let it dissolve, give it time, and then I let it resolve. And this is after him keeping that same rhyme scheme for the previous 6 bars, that stitches, dissolve, resolve. Anyway, again, it's not the greatest line. It's not one of the greatest lines of all time by any means, but I thought it was clever, and I thought it was insanely just clever when I heard it the first time. I had rewound it because I was like, ooh, he really said that shit? But, overall, stuff like this made me like this album a lot. I will say again that I think the instrumentals are by far the best part of this album, but I mean, if the rapping's bad, or if I don't find the rapping entertaining, then I'm just not going to listen to it or hold it to any regard whatsoever. So, I like, the wordplay was fantastic on this album, which I hoped it would have been, giving Logic's talent with it, but, it's there. It's definitely there. And to my surprise, throughout all of my listens, I did not hear a single biracial bar. And if you follow Logic's musical career, especially in the last few years, you know that, or if you follow just general kind of music memes or any kind of music culture, you kind of know that Logic likes to just rap about being biracial. He says it all the time, especially, again, over the last few years, over the last few projects. I'm not going to talk about Confessions of a Dangerous Mind because that album is horrible, but that's like the biracial anthem right there. It's just, or the biracial Bible right there, rap Bible. But I didn't hear any biracial bars on here. In fact, I made it through the entire album the first listen through, and I was just kind of thinking about it, like my first thoughts about it, and I was like, wait a second. Did he say that he was biracial? I mean, obviously we know that he's biracial, but that's kind of his thing, is just to kind of remind us that he's biracial in case we forgot since his last bad album, but I'm not saying that directly attributed to how highly I think of this album, but it did. I will say if I heard a biracial bar, I would have definitely disliked it. Alright. So let's get to the highlights. First highlight is the song Hit My Line that I mentioned before, and I think it has a great use of the Tyler sample that I mentioned, and I think it's insanely catchy, or I think it's very catchy, while still providing like the lyrics and the flow that Logic is great at. I think this is a pretty safe Logic song to play in any context, but I mean, like, hey, like if you want to listen, like if you heard this album, you like this album, and you have the benefits, you have the great responsibility of having aux in the car or at a party or I don't know, just anywhere at work. This is a pretty safe song to just kind of put on. It's pretty non-offensive by Logic standards, by rap standards, so you can just kind of put the song anywhere and it'll be fine. Next is, again, I'm going down these, or I shouldn't say again, but I'm going down these songs. The way I organize these songs, I usually just do it in order of the track listing. There's no like rhyme or reason other than that. I don't put my favorites first or my favorites last or anywhere. They're just kind of scattered about. But I will say which ones are my favorite. And the reason why I'm mentioning this now is because the next song that I have as a highlight is called Soul Food 2. And wow, this not only does the song have the best instrumental on the album, but it might be one of my favorite hip-hop instrumentals in a very long time. And honestly, after just kind of the newness of this album wears off, it might be one of my favorites of all time. That's high praise, but to me it's deserving of it. And I mean, again, that might just be gas, but like you just gotta listen to this, man. Like, this song sounds incredible, absolutely incredible. Like, No ID popped off on this. I'm not too familiar with Soul Food, like the Soul quote unquote series of Soul Food songs, like what the first Soul Food song sounded like. Again, I'm not like a legacy Logic fan. I'm not insanely familiar with his older works. I will be eventually, especially considering I really should have listened to more of his albums before this album came out, just to get a greater appreciation for it. But whatever. But anyway, back to this song again. It's called Soul Food 2. I'm just going back to the instrumental. I'm literally just going to talk about the instrumental. But it's insanely complex and urgent, and I think it's very easy for an artist to just not match that good of an instrumental, like just to kind of get carried by it, you know what I mean? But I think Logic matches its intensity with some of his best bars and best flows on this album. This song is insane. I think this is my favorite song on this album. This is my favorite song. This or the next song I'm going to talk about are my favorite song, but they're my favorites for completely different reasons. The reason that I think this Soul Food 2 might be my favorite is because I think it's just objectively an amazing song. Perfect on the other hand, this song does not belong on this album, and I do have it on as a highlight, by the way. This song does not belong on this album. It doesn't sound like it should, especially not sandwiched between the songs Soul Food 2 and then Man I Is, which, again, I wish I could play them for you, but I'm just gonna have to trust you go on your own and just listen to how weird these three songs are put back to back to back. It's a weird choice. I don't know why he did it like that, but I guess a song like this you just kind of have to throw somewhere on this album because it doesn't sound anything like it, like the rest of the songs. But like, holy hell, do I have so much fun listening to this song. This song made me get out of bed at like 12:30 in the morning in like my pitch black room and just like jump around and like damn near like head nod the skull off my neck. It's like, whew, like again, just listen to it. It's a bop. God. The song has, again, I'm gonna start. I think on like all of these, I kind of start talking about the instrumentals. The instrumentals are just so good. But this song is a very heavy Houston or Southern hip hop sound. Shout out to this Juicy J soundbite that's like at the very end of it. This is the shortest song on the album at only 1 minute and 40 seconds long, and I completely understand why. Because like I said, this song does not belong on this album. It's kind of weird because this sounds like a song that you would put on like a mixtape, that like an artist would put on a mixtape, because it's clearly an example of Logic trying out a different style. It's not boom bap by any means, and just kind of what ends up happening with him trying the style out is that his talents, being technical rapping and wordplay, aren't like super accentuated as much as they would be on a beat that he's like more comfortable with. But that being said, I found like the bounce on this song, and this song has bounce, like whew, like rocket, or not rocket, like what do they call them? Space boots. You know the things. You know when you were a kid and you went to Toys R Us and you were holding your mom's hand and you asked and you saw that big box of the shoes. They looked like buckets, and they had like, you know, like bungee cord or whatever, like in the middle, like you could wear them on your feet and you would just jump. Moon boots, moon shoes. Someone knows what I'm talking about. Hopefully someone knows what I'm talking about so I don't sound like I'm crazy. But where was I even going with this? But the song has that level of bounce. Sky Zone level of bounce, like trampoline park level of bounce. It's just a good sounding song. I just like talking. This song just makes me happy because it's so fun. And like, goddamn, whoever first thought of using the perfect soundbite from Street Fighter 2, because that's where it's from. I had to look it up because I've heard it before, so I knew it was a sample. Obviously, it's a sample, but it's from Street Fighter 2, the video game Street Fighter 2. Whoever first thought of using that soundbite in rap instrumentals needs to be rewarded heavily. It needs to be like insanely well recognized because it sounds so cool. Like on every time I've heard it, it sounds super cool, and it's probably one of my favorite parts of every song that it's on. And like, I mean, the song's called Perfect, but there are a couple moments in the song where it hits you with like a perfect. It sounds bad without a beat. I'm sorry, but just go listen to the damn song, all right? The only other like recognizable place that like I've heard this same perfect soundbite, or that like most people will be familiar with, is on the song "Pop Style" by Drake and The Throne being Kanye West and Jay-Z, which was off of his album called Views. If you know what I'm talking, if you're familiar with that song, you'll know what I'm talking about. Next highlight I have is the song called Dad Bod, and while this song is not the best song in the world by any means, it's probably, realistically, it's a good song. It's probably one of the weaker ones on this album, realistically, but the third verse has Logic rapping in this like Eminem-esque fashion, where he's just kind of like doing it in like kind of like a tongue-in-cheek kind of way, and it's him just like giving this comedic take on like his everyday, like what he does like on a normal day, which is him like waking up, changing like the clothes on his son, and then taking him to Target, where he just proceeds to like meet fans and like paparazzi and just like shop for just like normal people shit. And I think it's just funny. I thought it was fun to listen to. It's not really a song that I'm gonna listen back to for like if I want to just like listen to music, but I mean, it's funny. I thought it was entertaining. But yeah. Next song is called Five Hooks. And honestly, for this song, you can just use the exact same analysis, the exact same things that I talked about for Soul Food 2. For this song, just kind of tone down how much gas I gave it, and then just add a beat switch, and then you have Five Hooks. And then last highlight I have is the song called Heard 'Em Say. And Logic really cheated by using the beat to the best Kanye album intro ever. And again, I want to reiterate that the song I'm talking about, the best Kanye intro ever, is Good Morning off of Graduation. No, not Dark Fantasy off of My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy, and no, not Ultralight Beam. I'm sorry for all you hypebeasts that love Ultralight Beam and think it's his best intro ever. It's not. I'm sorry, but again, I'll save that for a different time. But I think this is easily the prettiest sounding song on here, other than Aquarius 3. Just a little bit about Aquarius 3. Aquarius 3 is one half or one segment of a 2-part song that's on here. I forget the name of the first part of the song, but it's like a double up song. But Aquarius 3 is really pretty too, but the first half I'm not huge on. But yeah, I think that this song, Heard 'Em Say, is insanely pretty. And I think the combination of No ID's, production on it in while also using the Kanye feature, it really helps bring out the emotion in Logic's verses, which are really needed on this song, because he kind of talks about like a lot of like introspective things, and a lot of like deeper things. Well, not like super deep, obviously it's still just Logic, but it accentuates it. It makes the song sound way more emotional than it could have. So as following my highlights, my only really big like lowlights or gripes that I had with this album is that Logic as a rapper can be pretty repetitive throughout like an entire album, like through an entire hour-long album. Like some of the songs kind of tend to blend together, and like this album is no exception to that. I've kind of thought that way about every single other Logic project that I've listened to. Logic project, bars. And it's not like, that applies to the vast majority of artists out there. I don't knock specific Logic for that, but I mean, in terms of me as a listener, it's something that I take into account when I'm like thinking about how good an album is, and I got a docket for that. Something that I don't like about it. I mean, while he does switch up his flows, like the subject matter and like the tone on each song, some songs, like I said, just kind of end up sounding super familiar to the point where the biggest difference between songs and like the only way that I can easily discern songs is from the instrumentals, because the instrumentals are insanely different between each song, and they're very they change up where Logic himself doesn't necessarily do as much. Which, I mean, I'll both big up the instrumentals and No ID for that, while also kind of critiquing Logic in that light. Also, I would kind of consider this next part, or I guess this last part, both a pro and a con, but depending on how you look at it, but I'll explain. I really like the effort put forth into making a full concept album. I think making like an actual concept album that works, like that's successful and actually is able to like pull off the narrative that you're trying to kind of depict. I personally think it's insanely hard to do in a good way. And I think Logic is good at making concept albums in general. Again, like I would consider this album to be a concept album. I think most people would be. But like, goddamn, I hated listening to like a song in isolation. Like I hated like hitting shuffle on my phone this weekend and hearing a song from this album just to have it get interrupted in the last 30-40 seconds by this talking robot. Again, I don't know her name. I know she's part of like the story, the quote unquote Logic beautiful, incredible, true story, whatever. I don't care. It sounds weird, and it takes me out of like the listening. Like, this is the part where if you played one of these songs in a club, not that you would really play any of these Logic songs in a club by any means, but if you were to play this song on aux at like a party or something, you would skip past this every single time. And again, I call it a pro and a con because obviously this kind of thing comes with something like a concept album. So I understand why it's there, but from me listening to it after repeated listens when I might just be listening to a specific song, I don't want to hear it. You know what I mean? Like, I would rather have... I know I've mentioned earlier on this, not this specific episode of the podcast, but I've mentioned earlier on this podcast a couple weeks ago that I'm not the biggest fan of interludes or skits, or actually I should say skits specifically on albums, because they take away... Because, I mean, they lend more towards, like, the overall... The album as, like, as, like, a true, consolidated, solid piece of music. But after like follow-up listens, if I'm just listening through an album in its entirety just for like the music, I'm skipping every skit. But conversely, skits are beneficial in the way where I now have something in between songs and in between the music where there is the story, so it's able for I will talk about concept albums more in the future. Specifically I have one planned for the Gods of the Genre series that I'm doing on Thursdays, but that will come in the future, sometime in the future. But for now, again, it's not like the biggest gripe in the world, because again, I understand why some of these elements of like, this robot and like these other voices and like some of the samples that he used, especially, like, I understand why they're there. But from listening back to this album, I don't want to listen to it. So if I feel like I have to skip parts if I feel that I have to skip parts of an album, then I knock the album for that. Sorry. But all that being said, I think this is a pretty solid send off from Logic. And if you're into really well made hip hop music, which I still think that this album is insanely well made. At the end of the day, it's probably the biggest and the most accurate take I could give on this album, is that it's insanely well made, and it's very nice to listen to if you're into this kind of music, which, it's very non-aggressive. It's very, it's very easy to kind of just put on this album and just kind of have it in the background. You don't have to listen to it in depth. But, if you like hip hop music at all, if you like Logic, if you want to listen more about Logic, I think it's a very good showing of what Logic is as an artist, all encompassing. And again, I think it does a great job of kind of closing the book on his music career, if I'm going to assume that he is in fact retiring. And yeah, so that will do it for this episode. Again, thank you very much for listening. Thank you very much to my wonderful guest Sarah for coming on this week's New Music Monday podcast to talk about Taylor Swift. Hopefully we'll see her back soon to talk about some other stuff. We'll see. But yeah, again, thank you very much for listening. Check out Thursday's episode, and if you're just in here for the New Music Monday, I will see you again on Monday.